There hasn't been much enthusiasm out there in the country, I think, but I was just thinking, Dan, tonight feels different to me. This, after all, is the great feast day of freedom, and millions of Americans don't want to be left out of it. Somebody gave me a list of the places from which our own people are sending in returns to you. These are polling places: a car wash in Chicago, a retirement home for nuns in Rockford, Illinois, Emma Kreeb's Feed Store in Shamokin, Pennsylvania, and Debbie's School of Dance in Lake Village, Arkansas. All those are voting places for this one day. I voted myself this morning in a Sunday school room in a church in Greenwich Village, New York, and found the room full of people, long lines of people eager to vote. So there is a sense of duty still in the country, I guess, even if there isn't a lot of enthusiasm.
Charles, when I voted this morning, it was at a schoolhouse here in New York City. There was a lot of enthusiasm, and what struck me is how orderly people were. Several of the women who worked at the polling place did a magnificent job of keeping everybody squared away. Now, coming up at 7:30 p.m. in the east of the United States of America, that would be just about 7 or 8 minutes from now, Ohio, North Carolina, Alabama, and West Virginia, the states that are in white with the exception of Vermont, way up there where the polls closed earlier, but we don't have a result. In all of those states, it'll be closing time for the polls. And our picture of the election, George Bush with 78 electoral votes by our estimates of the 270 needed. Once we get these states filled in that are in white there, we'll begin to know a whole lot more of whether Michael Dukakis has any real chance. So Dan Rather at CBS News Election Headquarters in New York. We'll see you again shortly.
We'll have those specific answers in about 20 minutes. For now, we return you to CBS News and Dan Rather.
Oh, hey, Kurt. Oh, I got this great joke about how big the Super Lotto jackpot is. Okay. Okay, now, stop me if you heard it.
Election night from CBS News headquarters in New York. Here again is Dan Rather.
Welcome back. Headline at this hour: more Southern comfort for George Bush, and he hits the 100 electoral college vote mark. Dukakis yet to get on the boards as the polls close in Ohio, considered a must-win state for Dukakis. Let's take a look. Our CBS News estimate as we came up to this hour was that George Bush had carried the states in red, getting 78 of the 270 electoral college votes needed to win. Vermont up there in white, the polls had closed, but we don't have enough information to say which way it's going to go. Dukakis yet on the board, and all the other areas, voting was still going on. But at this hour, 8 more states had their polls closed. I should say 4 more states. 4 more states had the polls closed with 51 electoral votes. And our CBS News estimate is, of these states, Michael Dukakis wins zip. None. George Bush picks up 2 more, and none of the states where the polls have just closed, do we say, are undecided. Now let's go to the close-ups now. North Carolina, 13 electoral votes there in the Tar Heel state, which Dukakis at one time had some hope of winning, but then pulled out of it and virtually gave it up. No surprise here, Bush gets North Carolina's 13 electoral college votes. In Alabama, right in the heart of Dixie, state of surprises, but no surprise here tonight. 9 electoral votes from Cotton Country, again from Alabama, go for George Bush. But with 270 electoral college votes needed to win, our CBS News estimate is that when all the votes are in and counted, George Bush will have no fewer than 100. But you may note that the Ohio is not one of those places where we've yet said that we know which way the electoral college votes are going. More about that in a moment. The national vote in and counted, still with just over now 2% of the precincts reporting, and they're small precincts at that. Bush leading 58 to 42%. We expect somewhere between 95 and 100 million votes to be cast before it's all over, so you can see how early it is. Now, Bruce, George Bush's Southern strategy clearly working. No one surprised. Maybe a bit of a surprise that Michael Dukakis, who said he thought he could carry Vermont, is still in the hunt there. Maybe a bit of a surprise that it's 7:30 and with the polls closed in Ohio, that we haven't said we have enough information to know exactly which way Ohio is going. That has to be good news for Dukakis.
Yeah, if I were a Dukakis staff person, I'd be cheering you on and not calling Ohio. I'd keep on not doing it, Dan. If there's anybody with a real reason to be happy about all this, aside, of course, from Mr. Bush, looking at the South, which looks like that Tom Clancy novel, Red Storm Rising, it's Ronald Reagan. This really is the Ronald Reagan Republican coalition holding firm again tonight. Our exit polls in the South show, for instance, that Vice President Bush got the votes of 85% of the people who approve of the job Mr. Reagan is doing as president. Now, Dukakis got just about the same percentage of the votes of those people who disapprove, but the point is this is Ronald Reagan's South, and 2 people out of 3 think he's doing a swell job as president. So that is a probably enduring change that Ronald Reagan has wrought in the structure. You know, I'm old enough to remember when people said the Solid South, they meant Franklin Roosevelt's Democratic Solid South. That has changed. George Bush is running just about as well this time as Ronald Reagan did all those years ago.
And a thing to look forward to. If George Bush runs as solidly in the Rocky Mountain West as he's expected to do, and as he's running the South, he's going to be very tough to beat indeed. Gives us a good opportunity to say, thanks Bruce, that Bruce pointed out, saying, well, if you were in the Dukakis camp, you'd be cheering because we have not yet said which way Ohio is going to go. We want to pause and say, anytime we're having a conversation around this table or talking about something else, when a return comes in or when we feel confident of a CBS News estimate, we will break in and tell you. That's the spirit of our coverage tonight. Now, we may not always be first. We do so badly want to be accurate. So on a big state like Ohio, a very important state, and a state where it's sometimes a little difficult to tell from exit poll information how the final count's going to go. When we say to you, we simply are not prepared to make a CBS News estimate, that doesn't mean that we know which way it's going to go. It means just what we say, that we want to take another look, maybe several other looks at more of our returns from out there. Now, 33 Senate races, remember, very important part of our story here tonight. The Democrats started the day 54-46 over the Republicans in the Senate. If George Bush, if he were to win and win big, and his coattails were strong, he possibly could bring the Republicans to control of the Senate as Ronald Reagan did in 1980. 2 states with Senate races have just had their polls closed. And our CBS News estimate is that in Ohio, when all of the votes are in and counted, and this is a big win for the Democrats, the veteran and considered by the Republicans vulnerable Democratic Senator Howard Metzenbaum will have beaten off the challenge of Mayor George Voinovich, one of the strongest Senate challengers fielded by the GOP. He made an issue of Metzenbaum's liberalism, but he didn't win it. Also in West Virginia, and no surprise with this one, Senator Robert Byrd, who will be retiring as the Senate Majority Leader, up for re-election, wins. He's been in the Senate since 1958. This time he beats State Senator Jay Wolf. Our CBS News estimate is that Byrd wins in West Virginia. So Bob Schieffer, an important hold-on for the Democrats in the Ohio Senate race. There'll be no pickup for the Republicans there in a bitter race that Ronald Reagan tried to turn around.
Oh, I think if the Republicans were going to take control of the Senate, Dan, they had to start in Ohio. You know, Howard Metzenbaum is one of those Democrats that just irritates Republicans to death. They've been trying to beat him for 15 years out there. Something always happens and they don't. At one point at this time, some Republican strategy group put out a memo suggesting that Metzenbaum had been a communist in his youth. I was at a rally with George Bush when someone got up and referred to Howard Metzenbaum as a pinko almost comic. But Metzenbaum, somehow or the other, has always turned this sort of thing to his advantage. When they try to pin the liberal label on him, he somehow pulls it off as he's the fighter for the little guy. He's been very successful at it in the past, and again, in one of the strongest opponents he's had in his career, he was able to do it again. I don't think we're going to see any George Bush coattails out in Ohio. Another interesting race, that race down in Florida, Dan, so far too close to call. That's the Republican Connie Mack going against the Democrat Buddy McKay. We did some exit polling on that, and this is a blowout state for George Bush. And yet we see that 20% of the people, that's 1 voter in 5 that voted for George Bush, voted for the Democrat McKay. If there was any place in the United States where we would have a chance to see some George Bush coattails, it should have been in Florida. We did not see them.
Well, we haven't seen them yet in Florida. May yet see Mack pull that one out. That race is really hot at the moment. We'll be checking in on it a little while later. Right now, joining us live from the United States Capitol is the Senate Republican leader, Bob Dole. Senator, thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
And you have to be smiling about what you see thus far about George Bush running very strong in the southern states and reaching on up into the middle part of the eastern seaboard. But Senator Lloyd Bentsen on Sunday said this year's heated campaign has, and I quote here now, so wounded both major party candidates that the ultimate winner will lack the serious mandate he needs, unquote Lloyd Bentsen. You agree?
Well, I think probably mandate in the sense of an overwhelming victory, popular vote, he's probably correct, but I can look back when Kennedy won by a whisker, when Carter won by a whisker, they both developed mandates. I think there's a certain